Welcome, everybody. In this video, we are going to talk with immigration attorney Tiffney Johnson about recent State Department updates regarding immigrant visa processing. Tiffney is an immigration attorney and a former consular officer and manager, and is well-versed in all things consular processing. So, Tiffney, welcome.
Thanks very much.
So tell us, for those who don't know you or haven't watched our previous videos, could you just give a little background?
Well, as you mentioned, I was a consular officer for 15 years before I became an immigration attorney. And now I have a practice that is focused on business immigration, family immigration, and consular processing issues.
Fantastic. And speaking of consular processing issues, there was a recent update from the State Department regarding where immigrants' petition interviews can be held. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I would say this is really not a big policy shift. But the gist of it is that if you want to transfer your case from one post to another post, one embassy or consulate to another embassy or consulate, those are primarily going to be facilitated directly through NVC. That's the National Visa Center, which is where your case is sent after USCIS approves your petition. It's sort of the holding tank for immigrant visa cases where all the documentation is initially collected and your case waits until an interview is available for you.
Fantastic. So there's a term called embassy shopping, where people kind of, can you explain that a little bit for those who?
Sure. Well, let me just reiterate so the policy is that people can be interviewed for their immigrant visas in countries where they have citizenship or countries where they have residence. And that has always pretty much been the policy. And if you chose something else on your form, when it got to the NVC, if it wasn't readily apparent why you chose that location, they would usually reach out to you and say, hey, why did you choose this? What do you have residence or citizenship there? Or some other reason why logically why you want to be interviewed there. And they could always override that. So none of that is really new. It's just now put out there and clarified. But the thing about the embassy shopping, now they have a tool called the IV scheduling tool. Previously this probably came out a couple months ago maybe, but previously it was kind of a mystery how long the wait time was at specific places for immigrant visa interviews in various categories. Attorneys had an idea just based on their history of processing at that post. But now you can actually go online and look at the Department of State IV scheduling tool, and you can see how long the wait time is at the post. So I think they anticipated that once this became live, people were going to see the wait times and potentially try to move their case to another location. And so now they have this policy clarified that you have to actually pretty much have citizenship or residency or some other special reason why you want to move your case. Well, be scheduled in the first place in one place and then move your case to another location. And so now that process, where previously you could sometimes go to the receiving post, get their permission directly, then you'd contact NVC or the post where it was sitting already, and they would move the case to the new post. But now all of that is done through the National Visa Center, even if your case has already been scheduled for interview. But, realistically, the number of people who will want to transfer their case after it's been scheduled for interview and they've been waiting is probably very small. And this policy really hones in on that you still have to go through NVC, even if your interview is already scheduled.
Gotcha. So it's not really so much new. It's just a clarification based on the.
Pretty much. And in the case where previously you would have been directed to contact the receiving post to see if they wanted to take it, this actually maybe makes it a little better for attorneys. Not that, NVC response times can't get long as well, but sometimes you would contact a post, and they would just never respond to your request. And other posts were really responsive. So depending on, you got a mixed reaction wherever you were trying to move the case to. And now maybe NBC will have a little more leverage to push on those non-responsive posts to get them to at least answer. Because I think ultimately the post will still be involved in the decision as to whether they want to accept a case or not. It just looks like it's being facilitated by the NBC.
Yeah, well, to me, that's good news because if you compare communicating with the Department of Labor or communicating with USCIS, we've found that the NVC is really responsive. That response time and the quality of the response. Have
I
you
agree. Yes, the quality of the response is always usually fairly well thought out and considered in your specific situation. And although they did face a time when the response times were quite long, there was a backlog of responses. Uh, I have always been able to get a response and to use some of their other functions for attorneys that, and find that they were responsive on our cases. The one thing I did forget to mention is that when you move your case to another post, this new policy did kind of indicate that you might receive a new document qualified date if you request a transfer, because it did mention about document qualified dates are determined by the last date that you submitted evidence to NBC. And I kind of think that that might mean that there may be a punitive type of action if you transfer your case when it's been sitting already waiting for a while. And that would change the document qualified date, which is the date by which your interview is scheduled based on other cases that had the same visa availability date.
And so by punitive, you mean you have to wait longer.
Right, you'd have to wait longer if you are now at the bottom of the pile of everyone else who has your same, visa availability date.
Gotcha, gotcha. Fantastic. So, yeah, so it's important to know this. So, yeah, a lot of EB3 applicants that are in our program, for example, will be citizens of, and this is just an example, citizens of Bangladesh and Pakistan,
Yep.
but they're working and living in Dubai or in the UAE or
Right.
because they're earning more. And so, can those people go to the U.S. Embassy in the UAE because they're living and working there?
If they have a residence in there, usually it's permanent residence or residence because that term is very different in different countries. But typically, I have not found any pushback if someone has those kinds of work visas especially in the Middle East, they have those kinds of work visas and they want to schedule immigrant or non-immigrant interviews there. And then of course, even if you don't live in your country of citizenship, you can always be scheduled there and sometimes that's advantageous.
Right, right. Absolutely. Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic. I know a lot of people have questions about this new kind of press release or update. So, thank you very much for clarifying.
Yeah.
And yep,
One other clarification, they did state that if you have a K-1 fiance visa, though, this process is not going to is the old process will still be in effect. So if for K-1s, they still have to contact the receiving posts.
gotcha, gotcha. Fantastic. Well, if you have any questions, leave a comment below. We'll have Tiffany's information available. She's available for consultations. Tiffany, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks so much, John.